UPS driver. One day when I was a junior in high school, I was home alone getting ready for cheer practice. I was just about to get in my car when I noticed the UPS truck pulling into my driveway. And this was during the holiday season, so UPS was taking in younger seasonal workers to help. The younger guy came out and gave me my package, so I thanked him and then I decided to wait inside for them to leave. I looked out my window and after about 5 minutes, they were still parked there. I didn't think much of it though because I thought they were just looking at the next houses they had to go to. After about 10 minutes, they finally left, so I decided to leave and go to cheer practice. About a week later, I was at a basketball game and had totally forgotten about the whole thing until I got an Instagram DM. It was some guy asking part 2 of my creepy UPS driver. So I stopped answering his Instagram DMs and then he started to blow my phone up. Sent tons of DMs and tried to video chat so many times, so I decided to block him. He then added me on Facebook and did the same thing. After blocking him on there, I didn't hear from him for the rest of the night. But then the next day, he started calling my cell number. So I finally answered it. And he just went on about how he liked me so much and wanted a chance with me and that he wanted to get married one day and that we would have the cutest kids. Every time he drove by my house, he would film it and send me a video and tell me to come out to say hi to him. And if nobody was home, he would go around my deck and film inside my house. Or he'd just try to FaceTime me to let me know he was there. Even though he was in college and didn't even live in our town, he would go to all of our school events and try to talk to me. He would even text me after school to try to get me to meet him in the parking lot. He would also ask or say really weird things to me. But I'm not going to get into it because I don't want this video getting taken down. But this all continued for weeks until he finally stopped working for UPS. I left out a few things, but I wanted to fit this all into 2 parts, so let me know if you want more.
Prom day gone wrong story time. In high school, my family was a bit tight on money. Usually I didn't eat and I would hang out in the library in order to avoid being questioned. As the school year came to an end, prom was coming up. I never had enough money for a prom dress, so I always turned down any offers to go, simply because I didn't want people to know that I couldn't afford a dress, let alone a ticket to get in. Between classes, as I walked through the cafeteria, I noticed there was a younger boy staring at me. One of his friends was nudging him, telling him to go ask her. Every time I saw him, I got the vibe that he was dark inside, so I did my best to avoid him at that point. Anyways, a week or so after prom, I heard some kids talking about something, almost whispering. Turns out he asked another girl to prom. She said yes, and when he showed up to her house, things did not go well. When he showed up, her father did not like his vibe. He told him that his daughter was not going to prom with him, unless he agreed to one condition. Prom date gone wrong, part 2. As mentioned in part 1, the girl who was asked on the date's father told her date he did not like him and that she could not go, unless he paid for half of her dress. Her date then told her he couldn't go, something came up and he would no longer be available. On prom night, he showed up at her house. While the family was sleeping, he cut a hole through the back door screen, and he unlocked the door with a knife. Her father heard noises downstairs. When he woke up, he saw her date. When asked, "What are you doing here?" he said, "I came to see you die," before charging at him with the weapon used to break into the house and a shovel. He managed to stab her father 7 times before his date's mother sent a warning shot into the air. They were able to subdue him and call the ambulance and police. From this night on, her father patrolled the house regularly every single night because the incident really impacted him. And this is the story about...
Story time. Someone tried to murder me on a school trip. So during my senior year, I started talking to this guy that we can call Tyler. And we all had to go on a school trip for a competition. During this, we had to stay in a hotel room and we were all assigned partners. Well, I didn't know this at the time, but I was actually assigned Tyler's ex-girlfriend. We can call her Penny. And when I found out she was his ex, I was like, you know what? Not a big deal. I'm probably just overthinking it, but she had a reputation for being psychotic. And I mean psychotic. Since we were all in close quarters, it didn't take her long to figure out that I was talking to her ex, and she went crazy on me. She basically threatened me by saying that if she ever saw me with him again, I wouldn't be coming home to my family. I still honestly didn't take her that seriously until the next day she saw us kissing, and she left the hotel room to buy throwing knives for when I got back. So when I reached the hotel room that day, she was yelling at me, threatening me, and then she took out one of the knives. Stay tuned for part 2 and follow me on Insta. To me almost getting murdered on my school trip. So when Penny took out one of the knives, she literally threw it right at me. Somehow it only managed to land 5 inches from me and I was okay. So I took off running out of the hotel room. I immediately went to our director, and literally because her parents fund most of the band stuff, he straight up couldn't care less. I told my mom, who happened to work with the superintendent's wife, So she told her the whole story and gave my mom his phone number. Let's just say they were suspended and the teacher was fired. She swore up and down that her and Tyler were going to get back together. But it's been 3 years later and she's still crazy and he still hates her. And I'm still with him. So I guess the moral of the story is please take it seriously if someone threatens you. Especially if it's a crazy ex. Love you guys. Follow my Insta and DM me if you have your own story that
This is why you should be careful working in food delivery. When the pandemic hit, I lost my job and signed up to work for a food delivery app. I was making good money and the tips were nice too. During the first few months of working, I never had any weird experiences or customers. For the most part, everything was fine. There were times when I was a little scared of dropping off the food because it was in sketchy neighborhoods or it was dark outside, but nothing ever happened. I started feeling confident in my position and I let my guard down. One night, I got a delivery request and the tip was bigger than the total order. When I looked at the details of how to drop it off, I realized why the tip was so big. The instructions asked if I could open the door and bring it inside of the house as they were bedbound and unable to walk to the door. I knew I shouldn't do it. It was super against company policy, but I had an aunt who was bedbound and it hit a soft spot. When I opened the door of the house, I was hit with the most vile stench that's ever hit my nose. I looked around and called out to the customer. It was silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, someone croaked out, "I'm back here, come on down." The voice came from a bedroom down the hallway that was pitch black. As I walked towards the room, my stomach was turning. I entered the room and put the order down, but I didn't see anyone. When I turned around to leave, suddenly a man appeared in front of me. Part 2 of why you should be careful working in food delivery. This man was tall, wore glasses, and was balding. He was also fully functional from what I could tell. In this moment, I realized how badly I had messed up. I was cornered away from the doorway. He thanked me for dropping off his order. I politely replied, "You're welcome," and tried to step around him to leave. He took a step in the same direction at the same exact moment and asked me what I was up to for the rest of the night. My heart was pounding out of my chest, but I quickly replied that I had another order to drop off and that they were waiting, so I had to go. However, he didn't move. Somehow, I mustered up enough courage to step towards him and say, "Excuse me, I really have to go." His hand was on the door and I knew he was either going to let me go or shut it and attack me. He stared at me for a moment, then hesitated and stepped out of the way. I quickly slipped past him and made a beeline for the front door. As I twisted the doorknob, I heard his footsteps running towards me. I swiftly opened the door, slammed it behind me, and sprinted towards my car. I felt the adrenaline rushing through my veins. I looked back to see if he was running after me, but he was just standing in the doorway, watching me run away with a smirk on his face. I never should have gone inside for a delivery, and I never will again.
Kidnapping rate in Detroit is so high a woman can't even go to the store alone anymore. I went to Myers and I bumped into a guy in an aisle. He was really, really tall with long hair. And I was like, "Oh, my bad, excuse me." He looked down at me. He was like, "Oh, no, you good, you good." Next thing I know, every aisle that I went to after that, he somehow ended up in the same aisle. So I tested the dude out to see if he was really following me or maybe I was going crazy, you know. So I went to the tampon aisle over by the makeup and all the women's products. Why he end up in that aisle too? So then I started taking my sweet ass time trying to see if this man would leave, which he never did. So I went to self-checkout and deliberately checked the product wrong. When assistants came, I told them, "Hey, look, it seems like this dude's been following me all this time. Can somebody walk me out to my car?" They sent one of the guys that